It was early morning, the kind of calm that came after a restless night. Logan sat at the kitchen table, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the room. He had barely taken his first sip when his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it, expecting a routine notification. Instead, it was a message from Rachel, Vanessa's best friend. Rachel wasn't someone he spoke to often. Their interactions were polite but distant. That's what made the message strange. "Happy anniversary, Logan. You deserve to know the truth." Logan's brows furrowed as he unlocked the phone. Attached to the message was a photo. His heart sank the moment he saw it. His fingers tightened around the phone, and his breath hitched in his chest. It was Vanessa, his wife of 8 years, sitting in a dimly lit bar, kissing another man. The caption read, "Dylan." Logan stared at the screen, his stomach churning. The man was much younger than him, maybe in his early 20s. His mind raced, struggling to process what he was seeing. The image burned itself into his memory, and he couldn't unsee it no matter how hard he tried. His composure, something he had always prided himself on, began to crack. He wanted to throw the phone across the room, but he held himself together, gripping the counter for support. Logan needed answers. Vanessa wasn't home. She had left early, saying she had a work meeting. He couldn't confront her yet. Instead, he dialed Rachel's number. She picked up after a few rings, her voice groggy but firm. "Logan," she said, her tone heavy with guilt. "I couldn't keep lying for her anymore." His jaw clenched as he tried to keep his voice steady. "How long, Rachel?" Her sigh on the other end was long and deep. "Months. She's been seeing him for months, Logan." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. He squeezed his eyes shut, gripping the phone tighter. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "I didn't know how to," she admitted. "She's my friend, but I couldn't watch her do this to you. It's not fair. She's been bragging about him, like you don't even exist." Logan's grip tightened. "Does Vanessa know you sent this?" "No," Rachel said quietly. "But she'll figure it out soon enough." "I'm sorry, Logan. You didn't deserve this." He hung up without replying, his mind racing. The kitchen felt colder, emptier. His gaze drifted to the small anniversary card he had bought for Vanessa the day before. It sat on the counter, unopened. The irony stung. Vanessa had always been good at masking the truth. She was charming, quick-witted, and always knew the right thing to say. Logan thought back to the subtle changes he had ignored, the extra time she spent getting ready, the late nights out with friends, the way she had been avoiding him lately. It all made sense now. He set the coffee cup down, his hands trembling. He felt like a fool. But one thing was clear, he wasn't going to play the role of the clueless, betrayed husband. Vanessa wanted to lie and sneak around? Fine. But Logan was going to make sure the truth came out, and when it did, it would hit her like a storm she couldn't escape. But not yet. He had to stay calm. He had to plan. The house felt unfamiliar as Logan paced the living room. The walls, the furniture, the photos of their once happy life, it all felt like a mockery now. Vanessa was out, probably with Dylan. The thought made his fists clench involuntarily, but he forced himself to stay grounded. Anger wouldn't solve this. He needed clarity, precision. Logan sat down on the couch, staring at the photo again. His heart ached, but the ache was slowly being replaced by something colder, resolve. This wasn't the time for confrontation. It was the time to gather the truth, piece by piece. By the time Vanessa came home, Logan would be ready. For now, he waited. The hours crawled by as Logan sat in silence, his mind replaying Rachel's words over and over. He knew he couldn't confront Vanessa without more proof, without understanding the depth of her betrayal. He wasn't just angry, he was determined. He had to outsmart her, and that required patience. By the afternoon, Logan had a plan. Vanessa's social media had always been a curated showcase of their perfect life together. But he now realized it was also a trail of breadcrumbs. As he scrolled through her recent posts, something stood out, a tagged photo from 2 nights ago. It wasn't on her account, but on a friend's, someone Logan barely knew. The caption read, "Girls' Night Out. Woman dancing wine glass." The photo was innocent enough on the surface. Vanessa and a few of her friends were smiling at a table littered with empty wine glasses. But Logan's eyes locked on a familiar detail in the background, a distinctive mirror he recognized from a high-end lounge downtown. Vanessa hadn't been out with just her friends. She'd been there with him. Dylan. His heart pounded as he clicked through more photos, looking for more clues. Then, like clockwork, a notification popped up. Vanessa had just checked in at Lumen, an upscale, discreet restaurant. The kind of place where people went to impress someone or hide something. The reservation time, 8 p.m. Logan felt a knot form in his stomach. She hadn't even tried to cover her tracks. She was that confident, that arrogant. He clenched his jaw and checked the time. It was 6:30 p.m. If she thought tonight would be just another night of sneaking around, she was dead wrong. By 7:45 p.m., Logan was dressed and out the door, his heart racing with a mix of fury and cold determination. He had made a reservation at Lumen under a pseudonym, securing a table with a clear view of the entrance. When he arrived, the restaurant was every bit as extravagant as he remembered. Dim lighting, polished floors, and the quiet hum of conversations over clinking wine glasses. He gave the hostess his fake name, forcing a polite smile, and was led to a small table tucked near the corner. From his seat, he had a perfect vantage point. He could see the front entrance and most of the dining area without drawing attention to himself. He ordered a glass of water, not trusting his stomach to handle anything stronger. At 8:10 p.m., Vanessa walked in. She was wearing a sleek red dress, one Logan had once loved because she wore it for him. Tonight, it was for someone else. Her makeup was flawless, her hair styled perfectly. She looked radiant, but Logan could only see the betrayal. Trailing behind her was Dylan. He was younger, taller, and dressed in a suit that screamed arrogance. The two of them didn't even look around. They were too absorbed in each other, laughing as they walked to a table near the back. Vanessa leaned in close to him, her hand brushing his arm, her smile glowing in the dim light. Logan felt his fists clench under the table. His teeth ground hard enough to ache, but he didn't move. Not yet. He needed more than just this moment. For the next hour, Logan sat there, watching. They ordered an expensive bottle of wine, toasting to something he couldn't hear. Vanessa's laughter rang out, carefree and loud, like she didn't have a husband at home. Dylan leaned closer to her, whispering something that made her giggle like a schoolgirl. Logan's chest burned with a mixture of rage and heartbreak, but outwardly, he stayed calm. He studied every interaction, the way she touched Dylan's hand, the way she smiled at him in ways she hadn't smiled at Logan in months. It was like watching a stranger in her skin. By the time they ordered dessert, Logan had seen enough. He paid his bill, the receipt crumpled in his hand, and walked out into the cool night air. He leaned against his car for a moment, letting the fire inside him simmer. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Logan drove home with the image of Vanessa and Dylan burned into his mind. Her laughter, her touch, the way she leaned into him, it played on a loop, like a broken record he couldn't shut off. The red dress, the wine, the smugness on Dylan's face, it all fed the fire of anger inside him. But anger wasn't enough. Logan needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof. He couldn't just accuse Vanessa, he had to catch her in a way she couldn't deny or manipulate. This wasn't just about confronting her. It was about exposing the truth. The next morning, Logan woke up before the sun. He brewed his coffee, the bitterness matching his mood, and sat at the kitchen table with his laptop. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he debated his next move. Then, an idea hit him. Vanessa had always been careless with her phone. She wasn't tech-savvy, and Logan knew her passcode. It was his birthday. He'd never felt the need to invade her privacy before, but now, privacy was a luxury she no longer deserved. When Vanessa left for work, Logan waited a few minutes to make sure she was gone, then searched the house for her old tablet. It was tucked away in the study, collecting dust. He powered it on, and as expected, her accounts were still logged in. Her messages synced almost immediately. His heart pounded as he scrolled through them, his stomach twisting with every new conversation. Most were mundane, the kind of everyday chatter you'd expect. But then he found the thread with Dylan. It was everything he feared and more. The messages were sickeningly intimate. They ranged from casual flirting to outright planning their next meetup. Dylan was cocky, calling Logan names and joking about how clueless he was. Vanessa didn't defend Logan. Instead, she encouraged Dylan, laughing at his remarks and saying things like, "I can't wait to see you again," and "Logan doesn't even notice anymore." Logan's hands shook as he read further. There were photos too, selfies of Vanessa in outfits she'd never worn for him, pictures of them together at places she had claimed to be with friends. One photo stood out, Vanessa in her red dress, sitting next to Dylan, their hands intertwined on a table. It was taken the night before. His anger flared, but he forced himself to stay calm. This was what he needed. Proof. He saved the photos and screenshots of their conversations, creating a folder on his laptop labeled Truth. Every message, every image, he documented it all. As the day wore on, Logan's plan began to take shape. It wasn't enough to confront Vanessa. She needed to face the full weight of her actions. She had lied to him, humiliated him, and destroyed the life they had built together. She had to feel the consequences. That evening, Logan sat in the living room, staring at his wedding photo on the mantel. It felt like a relic of a life that no longer existed. The love, the trust, the promises, they were gone. All that remained was the cold truth of her betrayal. Vanessa came home late as usual. Logan didn't ask where she'd been, and she didn't offer any explanation. She kissed him on the cheek, a hollow gesture that made his skin crawl, and disappeared into the bedroom. Logan stayed up late, replaying the day's events in his mind. He knew he couldn't act on impulse. If he confronted her now, she'd spin a web of lies. No, he had to wait for the perfect moment. And he knew exactly how to create it. The next step in his plan required patience and precision. Vanessa thought she was untouchable, that her lies were safe. But Logan was about to show her just how wrong she was. Logan knew the confrontation had to be flawless. It wasn't just about catching Vanessa. It was about ensuring there was no way for her to twist the narrative. For days, he had gathered evidence, messages, photos, locations, and now it was time to set the trap. That evening, Vanessa stood by the mirror, applying her lipstick with the same meticulous care that used to make Logan smile. Tonight, though, it filled him with cold resolve. "I'll be home late," she said casually, adjusting the strap of her sleek black dress. "Work dinner." Logan nodded, keeping his expression neutral. "All right. Don't work too hard." She smiled faintly, kissed him on the cheek, a gesture that now felt hollow, and walked out the door. The moment it closed behind her, Logan's demeanor changed. He grabbed his phone and opened the tracking app he had secretly installed on hers earlier that week. Vanessa's location pinged near the Blue Orchid, an upscale restaurant downtown. Logan recognized the name. It was discreet, expensive, and far from the kind of place someone would go for a work dinner. He slipped on his jacket, grabbed his keys, and followed. By the time he arrived, the restaurant's warm lights spilled onto the sidewalk, casting long shadows in the quiet evening air. Logan parked a block away and approached cautiously, staying out of sight. He didn't have to wait long. Vanessa stepped out of a cab, her heels clicking softly on the pavement. Dylan was waiting for her at the entrance, dressed in a tailored suit that made Logan's stomach twist. They greeted each other like lovers, Dylan pulling her into a brief but intimate embrace. Vanessa's laugh rang out, light and carefree, as they walked inside together. Logan clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay calm. He wasn't here to make a scene. Not yet. Instead of following them directly, Logan circled around to the alley behind the restaurant. He had already scouted the location earlier in the week, noting the building's layout and the position of the staff entrance. From the shadows, he could see into the dining area through a partially open window. Vanessa and Dylan were seated near the back, their table dimly lit by a flickering candle. She leaned in close to him, her hand resting on his as they talked. Logan watched silently, the knot in his stomach tightening with every passing second. They ordered wine, an expensive vintage, and toasted to something Logan couldn't hear. Vanessa looked radiant, laughing at something Dylan said, her eyes sparkling in a way they hadn't around Logan in months. It was painful to watch, but Logan forced himself to stay focused. He snapped a few photos with his phone, ensuring the angles were clear and undeniable. One photo captured the moment perfectly, Vanessa leaning toward Dylan, her wedding ring glinting mockingly under the soft light as her hand rested on his arm. Logan stayed in the shadows for nearly an hour, documenting every interaction. When they finally stood to leave, he slipped away, returning to his car. His chest felt heavy, but his mind was sharp. He had everything he needed. Back home, Logan sat at the dining table, reviewing the evidence. The photos, the location logs, the messages, all of it painted a damning picture of Vanessa's betrayal. He wasn't just a husband anymore, he was an investigator piecing together the truth. This wasn't just about catching Vanessa in the act. It was about ensuring she couldn't escape the consequences. Her lies, her arrogance, they would all come crashing down soon enough. And when they did, Logan would be ready. The day of their anniversary dawned colder than usual, but Logan felt nothing. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the card he had bought weeks ago. It was still in its pristine envelope, mocking him. The words inside, about love, trust, and commitment, felt like a cruel joke now. Vanessa had left early again, muttering something about a work emergency. Logan didn't argue. He simply nodded, his face a mask of indifference. She didn't even notice the subtle shift in his demeanor. By late afternoon, Logan had finalized every detail of his plan. The evidence was ready. The confrontation was going to happen tonight, in a way Vanessa wouldn't see coming. She thought she had fooled him, but she had underestimated how far he was willing to go to expose the truth. That evening, Logan dressed sharply in a dark suit, one he hadn't worn in months. He arrived at the Lumen, another upscale restaurant Vanessa favored, at precisely 7:45 p.m. His reservation was under the name Andrew Carter, a name Vanessa wouldn't recognize. He had chosen a table with a clear view of the entrance and settled in, waiting. Vanessa walked in at 8:10 p.m., her black dress hugging her figure. She looked stunning, but Logan felt no admiration. He watched as Dylan appeared moments later, his smug smile plastered across his face. They greeted each other warmly, Vanessa's hand brushing his chest as they laughed. Logan's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to remain composed. This was not the time for rage. Not yet. For nearly an hour, Logan sat silently observing. Vanessa and Dylan ordered wine, their conversation flowing effortlessly. She leaned toward him, laughing, her hand lingering on his. It was a picture of intimacy, one that had once been reserved for Logan. The moment of confrontation came just after the dessert arrived. Vanessa was mid-laugh, her wine glass halfway to her lips, when Logan stood and walked across the room. He moved with purpose, his steps deliberate, drawing attention from the nearby diners. "Happy anniversary, sweetheart," Logan said, his voice steady but cold. Vanessa froze, the smile on her face vanishing instantly. Her glass trembled in her hand as she placed it back on the table. Dylan looked between them, confusion and unease written all over his face. "Logan, what are you doing here?" Vanessa stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled out his phone and placed it on the table in front of her, the screen lit up with one of the damning photos he had taken. Vanessa's face drained of color as her eyes darted to Dylan, then back to Logan. "Don't stop on my account," Logan said, his lips curling into a bitter smile. "You seem to be enjoying yourself." Dylan shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his earlier confidence faltering. "Look, man, I don't know what you think this is." Logan cut him off with a sharp glare. "You don't get to speak," he said, his tone icy. "This isn't about you." Yet. Vanessa swallowed hard, trying to regain her composure. "Logan, I can explain." "Explain?" Logan interrupted, leaning closer. "Explain what?" That you've been sneaking around with him for months? That you've been lying to my face every single day? Go ahead, Vanessa. I'd love to hear your explanation. The other diners were beginning to notice, their murmurs filling the room. Vanessa's eyes darted around, panic setting in. Logan, please. Can we talk about this somewhere else? No, Logan said firmly, straightening up. We're talking about it here. You made this public when you decided to parade him around like I didn't exist. Vanessa's defiance flickered briefly as she crossed her arms. Maybe if you weren't so distant, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. The words hit like a slap, but Logan didn't flinch. He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. Blaming me? That's rich. You've been cheating, lying, and humiliating me, and somehow this is my fault. Dylan tried to intervene again, his voice shaky. Look, man, I think we should all just calm down. Calm down? Logan snapped, his glare piercing. You think this is about being calm? You're sitting here with my wife, drinking wine I probably paid for, and you want calm. The tension at the table was suffocating. Vanessa looked desperate now, her bravado crumbling under the weight of the confrontation. Logan leaned in one last time, his voice low but firm. Enjoy your evening, Vanessa. It's on me. But don't bother coming home. We're done. He pulled a crisp $100 bill from his pocket and slapped it onto the table, the sound echoing in the stunned silence. Without another word, he turned and walked out, his steps steady despite the storm raging inside him. Logan drove home in silence, his mind replaying the confrontation over and over. The look on Vanessa's face, the panic, the regret, it should have felt like a victory, but all it left was emptiness. The house was dark when he entered, eerily quiet. He sat on the couch, staring at the wedding photo on the mantel, a relic of a life that no longer existed. He wasn't done yet. The confrontation was only the beginning. The next morning, Logan woke to the sound of his phone buzzing relentlessly. Notifications from friends, family, and even acquaintances flooded in. Word of the restaurant incident had spread like wildfire, thanks to a few onlookers who had captured the scene on their phones. Vanessa hadn't come home, but Logan didn't care. He opened his laptop and stared at the folder labeled Truth. Inside were the screenshots of her messages with Dylan, the photos from the restaurant, and every piece of evidence he had collected over the past week. It was time to take the next step. He started with a private group chat that included close friends and family. Logan uploaded a few choice screenshots, letting the images speak for themselves. The caption was short and sharp, "Happy anniversary to me." Guess I wasn't the only one celebrating. The reactions were immediate. Shocked messages, angry calls, and even a few offers of support poured in. Vanessa's sister was the first to call, her voice laced with outrage. "She's been doing this behind your back?" she asked, disbelief evident. "I can't believe her." Logan sighed. "Believe it. I've got all the proof." Vanessa's carefully constructed image of a loving wife was unraveling, and Logan knew this was only the beginning. He wasn't content with just private humiliation. Vanessa had flaunted her betrayal publicly, and now she would face the consequences publicly as well. Later that afternoon, Logan created an anonymous post on a local gossip forum. He uploaded the photo Rachel had sent him, the one of Vanessa and Dylan kissing in the bar, with a brief description. "When you find out your wife of 8 years has been seeing someone half her age. Thanks for the anniversary gift, Vanessa." Within hours, the post went viral. Comments flooded in, ranging from sympathetic messages to harsh judgments. Dylan's identity was quickly uncovered by internet sleuths, and the comments turned brutal. People mocked his arrogance, questioned his integrity, and even shared rumors about his past. Logan leaned back in his chair, watching the fallout unfold in real time. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming control of his life and making sure Vanessa and Dylan couldn't sweep their betrayal under the rug. That evening, the front door slammed, and Vanessa stormed into the living room. Her heels clicked angrily against the floor as she held up her phone, the screen glowing with one of the viral posts. "What the hell is this, Logan?" she demanded, her voice trembling with fury. Logan didn't look up from his laptop. "Looks like the truth is finally catching up to you." Her face twisted in anger and desperation. You had no right to post that picture. Do you know how humiliating this is? Humiliating for you? Logan stood, his voice rising. What about me, Vanessa? You've been sneaking around with Dylan for months. You think that didn't humiliate me? Or did you just assume I wouldn't find out? She crossed her arms, her defiance flickering. This isn't what you think, Logan. Dylan and I. Don't, Logan interrupted, stepping closer. Don't even try to spin this. I saw you with him. I've read the messages, Vanessa. I know everything. You don't get to lie your way out of this anymore. For the first time, Vanessa faltered. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The confidence she had always wielded so easily was gone, replaced by uncertainty and fear. You're blowing this out of proportion, she said weakly, her voice barely audible. Logan laughed bitterly. Am I? Because it seems to me you've been playing house with a kid who can't even spell loyalty. Were you ever going to tell me, or were you just hoping I'd be too stupid to notice? Her silence was all the confirmation Logan needed. By the time Vanessa left the house, she was in tears. Logan didn't bother stopping her. He had said everything he needed to say. As the door slammed shut behind her, a sense of calm washed over him. The house was quiet again, but this time it felt like peace rather than emptiness. The house was still the morning after Vanessa left. Logan stood in the kitchen, sipping his coffee and staring out the window. The quiet was strange, but not unwelcome. It wasn't the oppressive silence that had filled the house in the weeks leading up to his discovery. It was the kind of quiet that came with clarity, with knowing the worst was behind him. His phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at the screen. Messages from mutual friends, some offering support, others fishing for gossip. He ignored most of them, except for one from Rachel. I'm sorry you had to go through this, Logan. If you need anything, I'm here. Logan sighed and typed back, Thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it. You did the right thing. By midday, Logan was packing. He had decided the night before that the house had to go. It wasn't just a home anymore. It was a battlefield, haunted by Vanessa's lies. Every room carried memories that felt tainted now. The laughter, the late-night talks, even the way the sunlight streamed through the windows in the morning, it all felt like a mockery. He boxed up what he wanted to keep and left the rest untouched. Vanessa's things were still scattered throughout the house, but he didn't care. She could come back for them, or they could be thrown out. It didn't matter to him anymore. By the time the movers arrived, Logan had listed the house online. Within days, offers started pouring in. A young couple bought it, eager to start their life in the same place Logan had ended his. He didn't envy them. He just wanted to leave it all behind. Vanessa, on the other hand, wasn't faring as well. Mutual friends whispered about her struggles. Dylan had disappeared, likely scared off by the attention their affair had drawn. Vanessa was alone, her social circle in shambles. Even her family had distanced themselves after the truth came out. Logan felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only a quiet sense of justice. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. In his new apartment across town, Logan found solace in simplicity. The place was modest, free of the weight of the past. He spent his evenings rediscovering hobbies he'd forgotten about, woodworking, reading, even going for long walks just to clear his mind. Slowly, he started to feel like himself again. One evening, Rachel stopped by unannounced. She held a bottle of wine in one hand and a hesitant smile on her face. I thought you could use some company, she said, setting the bottle on the counter. Logan poured them both a glass, and they sat on the balcony, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. Rachel's presence was calming, her honesty refreshing. She didn't try to sugarcoat anything, didn't offer empty platitudes. She just listened. I should have told you sooner, Rachel admitted, her voice soft. But I didn't know how. Logan shook his head. You told me when it mattered. That's what counts. They raised their glasses in a quiet toast. To new beginnings, Rachel said with a faint smile. To new beginnings, Logan echoed. Months passed, and the wounds began to heal. The divorce was finalized quickly. Vanessa didn't contest it, likely knowing she had no ground to stand on. Logan made sure the paperwork detailed every betrayal, every lie, ensuring there was no way for her to manipulate the situation. For the first time in years, Logan felt free. He didn't have to walk on eggshells, didn't have to wonder what was real and what was a lie. The life he had built with Vanessa was gone, but in its place, he found something new, himself. One evening, as Logan sat on his balcony, sipping bourbon and watching the sunset, he realized he wasn't angry anymore. Vanessa, Dylan, the betrayal, they were just chapters in his story. Painful, yes, but chapters nonetheless. The road ahead was his to walk, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was heading in the right direction. And with that, Logan took a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill his lungs. He wasn't defined by what had happened to him. He was defined by how he chose to move forward. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, revenge, and moving forward, make sure to subscribe for more gripping tales like this one. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Let me know if you need further refinement or additional elements. Smiling face with smiling eyes.